Well, folks, coming to the Orpheum Theater, they've had some great events, especially since the opening of the Grand. We'll have the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, last year, there was a lot of fun with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and you had, Cousin Eddie's RV out front, and something was full that we won't discuss. But it was a special event, and they have come back again, bigger and better than ever, with an event this year. And not only is it the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but it is an amplified experience in a big way. It's not just a movie on a screen. The folks from, I'm going to see if I get it right in the first try, Flustered Mustard.
There you go.
Tristan Ratterman with Flustered Mustard. And Tristan, for those who haven't heard about Flustered Mustard, you guys started something, and man, you are all over the Midwest right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We started up back in, specifically Flustered Mustard. We booted that group up back in 2017 here in St. Charles, Missouri, just outside of St. Louis. And we were kind of restricted out here in St. Charles for quite a while. We were at the St. Andrew Cinema for about 3 years, and then we kind of started bouncing around a little bit. And then our cinema caught fire, so, we were kind of forced to, do we end it or do we kind of go somewhere else? So we kind of started bouncing around a little bit, and then we kind of started toying with the idea of, maybe there are smaller towns across the country that would like a Rocky Horror Show. Because, independent family-owned theaters are always trying to find new ways to, bring in an audience and not just rely on first-run pictures. Every major city across the USA, for the most part, has a Rocky Horror Shadowcast, but there are hundreds and hundreds of small towns in between, and the Midwest is pretty easy to get to, especially with St. Louis being pretty centrally located. So it really only made sense to kind of start bouncing around a little bit, a little outside of St. Louis. We've even done shows as far as Florida, Michigan. It's been a good time bouncing around. We've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting people and visit a lot of really, really neat places.
And let's explain the concept for those unfamiliar with the Shadowcast. It's like seeing a musical and the movie at the same time. It's like, boy, I love chocolate. I'll just have 2 layers of it. That's not even fair. Maybe 3 layers, but just tell people who aren't familiar what that's like.
Yeah, so a Rocky Horror Shadowcast, our primary job is bringing the movie off the screen and into the seats. Bringing the movie alive and bringing the room alive with the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we have a whole cast of characters that acts out the show, both in front of, alongside of, and in the audience. Dressed as the characters, mouth along, singing along. We drive a motorcycle through some theaters. There's confetti, balloons. Everybody gets a prop bag so they can participate along with the movie. And throw toilet paper and, blow party noise blowers and stuff like that. The building and the movie truly do come alive with both the audience participation from the people in the seats and the Shadowcast. There is nothing else like it in the entire world. There are a lot of different movies that, people have said, oh, The Room is the next Rocky Horror, or Phantom of the Paradise is the next Rocky Horror. We're going to start shadowcasting that, or even Shrek is what some people have said lately, or Repo the Genetic Opera, but there is nothing like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Donkey.
It's the longest-running movie of all time, the granddaddy of cult films, and the original audience participation film. It actually turns 50 years old next year. It's never left theaters since it first came out in 1975.
I just can't picture people every time, Shrek, I love parfaits. I can't picture someone all of a sudden throwing toast and Jell-O in that moment. But, yeah,
I know.
It's a unique marriage, and yeah, I can't picture a Shadowcast with anything else. Something more limited. I can't imagine Mamma Mia, audience participation. But I can't picture people throwing stuff.
Yeah, other groups do stuff like that around the country. We pretty much stick to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's kind of our way to make sure that we're always giving our best and we're not focusing on really anything else. We're focused on the one show that we tour to make it the biggest and best that we possibly can every single night.
It seems like in these times, people are a little more creative with social media. They're a little more open with cosplay and stuff, and it's not just limited to people of a certain age. It just seems like this era is even better than the heyday as far as people actually getting dressed up and getting involved. I mean, I know there was that hardcore audience back then, but it seems like you don't have to have the necessary don't necessarily have to have the fanatic type to come in, pick a costume, and enjoy it.
Oh yeah, well, it's multi-generational at this point. I mean, we have grandparents bringing their kids and their grandkids to the show. I mean, we've had 4 generations in a show before. It's not quite as risque as it would have been deemed back in the 70s and 80s now, which I think is kind of what helps make it multi-generational. And it always has been kind of a rite of passage, especially as years went on. I mean, it's a thing that a lot of teenage and college kids frequent. You know, it's a cheap form of entertainment. It's always late at night. You know, kids love to stay out late at night. Who doesn't? Plus, you get to make a mess in the theater. And yeah, you're right. The social media has played a large part in making sure that stuff like Rocky Horror, you know, is a little bit, I mean, not even just a little bit, significantly more mainstream than it was back in the day. I mean, it was kind of, you know, you don't talk about what you do in the shadows or at the screenings, you know, if you go to school or stuff like that back in the 70s and 80s, because, you know, I mean, just politics in general, you know, you never know what people are kind of thinking about that. But social media and just things have progressed so far that if it's done right, it's a thing that a lot of different age ranges can enjoy all together at the same time. And yeah, I mean, of course, dress up and, you know, there's costume contests, and people love to get dressed up and take pictures and make a whole night out of it, which only pushes the show even further, keeping it alive.
Well, I've got to think that these theaters really just, these old theaters, you've gone to so many classic theaters and, you know, help them, you know, with a revenue stream. But I just have to think it really helps you get into character. And again, these places that have great bones, 100 years old, whatever the case may be, like the Lincoln and Belleville and other stops you've had this year. And it just seemed, I can imagine it brings out your best, because in the heyday, they were like a place for vaudeville and performers.
Well, we always try to seek out the older theaters, not just for the, you know, incredible backdrop, but again, to kind of really drive the atmosphere, but also to kind of help out and give these family-owned or nonprofit theaters a really good source of income. I mean, you can't really rely on first-run pictures from the studios anymore. But looking back to where Rocky Horror really found its audience, I mean, if you go back to 1975 when the movie was deemed a flop, it has never been pulled from circulation. But I mean, the places where it really thrived were, you know, the seedy old movie palaces and stuff like that, with the crumbling plaster on the walls, where they were okay if you threw toast, because you know what, it paid the bills for that week. So to still kind of keep it in those environments, well, they're significantly more maintained now, just due to, you know, the historic aspect of it. But I mean, we've done a couple, you know, multiplex type shows before, not in Marcus, but, you know, somewhere like a Marcus Theater or a Regal or something like that is kind of what I'm getting at. And it's just not the same. It's not the same as when, you know, you're sitting in a recliner all cozy and stuff like that. But when you're in a seat and it's loud and it's booming and, you know, the armrest is falling off, you're constantly balancing your drink because someone's running past you, kicking your popcorn over. I mean, the whole thing is just sensory overload in the best way.
Well, you know, it always stings when you realize you're old, and that's something I run into all the time. But I obviously you've run into people who have been longtime fanatics, and I know the Varsity Theater in St. Louis was legendary. I mean, for years and years, it was the only movie they showed. It was.
Yeah, every Friday, Saturday, and even sometimes Thursdays and Sundays. They ran it for 12 years.
Yeah.
I believe it was incredible. Michael Stipe from REM was a part of the really early Shadowcast back in the late 70s or mid to late 70s. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've still got a lot of the stuff from the Varsity kind of hanging around. I'm looking right now at the plaque that used to hang above the theater with the year marker on it that someone made for them. They change it out every year. It was that place is incredible. I mean, the photos that have come from that. It's funny, too, that you mentioned the Varsity. If you're looking at the history of the Rocky Horror Picture Show and the midnight shows kind of across the country, New York is always deemed the place where Rocky started. Well, if you actually look at the dates and everything like that, Rocky was other places first. And if you talk to people from that time, everything kind of cropped up almost weird simultaneously across the country. But if you're looking at dates, the Rocky Horror Picture Show opened here in March of 1976, and it didn't open at the Waverly in New York until April Fool's Day of 1976. So St. Louis actually beat New York in that regard. We had it first, and it never left, both fortunately and unfortunately.
Well, and people don't know this, but the inspiration for Michael Stipe's "Everybody Hurts" was, wearing Frankenfurter's high heels. So anyway, that's a terrible joke, but that's worthy of a different kind of bag of props. But that's my humor for you. So you have 3 big shows left. The folks listening to any of them are going to be from Hillsboro, and the Orpheum Theater, that's an exciting one, and the Melba and DeSoto, and the Miners Theater, near and dear to my heart over there in Collinsville. Pretty good final 3 shows to wrap up, and just a sign of how big Halloween is that, I know you do shows that little outside of the quote-unquote Halloween period, but just kind of a sign, too, of just how people are more and more willing to let Halloween spill over its banks, so to speak.
Oh, goodness, yeah. I mean, Halloween's on a Thursday this year, which for most people, that means we get 2 weekends of Halloween. We got last weekend and we get this one. We had 3 sold-out shows last weekend on Thursday at East Central College, Friday at the City Museum rooftop in St. Louis, and then Saturday we screened it on 35mm film at the High Point. And so coming into a weekend with places like the Orpheum, the Melba, and then next weekend at the Miners, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the Orpheum, I absolutely love. I mean, it's run by the Eisentraut family. Carrie Eisentraut, the manager over there, is hands down one of the best theater managers, owners working in the entire Midwest, if not the country. I mean, every single gosh darn movie over there is an event, and there's so much work that goes into it, and they're so wildly creative and dedicated to making sure that film and the cinematic experience is an experience that you can't get at home. I mean, absolutely incredible place.
Well, I can only imagine, Tristan, that you get people, they're like the 3rd or 4th person along with a group of friends. They're along for the ride. It's got to be neat because I'm sure you look in the eyes of people and you see the converts, the converted fan when you do this. It's got to be a neat feeling.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love hearing stories, too, from, how people first discovered the movie or, like my mom told me I couldn't go, which only made me want to go more. So I snuck out on a Friday night and, went to this crazy theater down in X City at midnight and, partied out all night with my friends and got in trouble the next morning because they caught me with eyeliner on. And I mean, it is really a life-changing experience for a lot of people that aren't, or kind of discovering themselves in a way that isn't, you can't really get anywhere else. I mean, it's a very, freeing, exciting place. And there's not really, as long as everybody's being safe and kind to everybody, it's an incredible place.
Well, I know entertainment and how folks under 20, how folks under 30, and really folks under 40, how they have grown up with it. And the late night TV isn't the phenomenon that it was. There used to be wars, and now they're all buddies. That's kind of different. And music, obviously, the music industry has contracted quite a bit. They did a poor job preparing for digital. So I know that younger people, I've seen it, have kind of looked to go their own way, and they've turned to the past, or they've turned to things that are, bands, whatever, that are off the beaten path, unsigned, whatever the case may be. And it seems like the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a part of that it's finding that younger audience. Is that on target?
In a lot of places around the country, I mean, it's interesting. Back when the movie came out, it was like any other movie. Theaters booked it and ran it just as any other first-run picture. And then if it did well, they held on to it until, the film prints wore out until they wanted to book something else. The dynamic has shifted greatly from, theaters booking this to Shadowcasts being the main ones marketing and pushing this. Like, we provide posters, we contact the theaters, everything like that. We love touring, we love visiting these places, we love experiencing the movie in different environments. And what we try to do differently that a lot of people around the country don't is we tried to go back to how it was done originally. A lot of groups around the country have tried to kind of evolve the movie along with the times, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. You want to keep things fresh and everything. But when I was a teenager and we were starting this out, I wanted somewhere that me and my friends could go hang out at midnight. And I looked back, and it was primarily teenagers and college kids back in the 70s and 80s that were staying out past midnight, going over and over again, stickering their cars with Rocky Horror bumper stickers and buying the t-shirts. So that's who we targeted. We targeted, people in our age range. We made sure the show was always at midnight. We made sure it was rowdy, but still being safe. And I mean, just speaking of being out in St. Charles or even St. Louis, there's not a lot of stuff that people can do that's affordable, or that young people can do that's affordable late at night. I mean, you've got a couple restaurants. Even back then there was just a couple. Now post-pandemic, there's even less. But midnight movies don't exist anymore. So to have a safe space for people to go and, be comfortable getting dropped off with all of their friends, and, parents know they're safe and having a good time. I mean, it's all innocent fun. That's really all it is. But we've tried to keep our demographic significantly younger, just based on the fact that is the group that continually turns out over and over again. As people get older, they don't want to stay out so late. Jobs take over, families take over, everything like that. So we always try and gear it towards the younger audience, which is great too, because then it brings the multi-generational aspect into it of, it's the same show that people's grandparents saw back in the 70s. People's parents saw back in the 70s. I mean, we still take nods from the Varsity all the time. We play the music videos the Varsity used to play of Tim Curry and Meatloaf. We took the concept of the audience slideshow before the movie and from the Varsity, and we still play that every single night. We do a show.
Well, I think one of the neat things in particular, just a recognition of how big what you do is, I've seen you've had the past appearances, I think it was in Indiana, where you've actually appeared with cast members of the actual movie.
Yes, absolutely. We've done shows with Barry Bostwick specifically on a couple different occasions, which he's incredibly kind. The Stars tour are currently touring the movie across the country for the 49th and 50th anniversary, 50th being next year. They kind of, bounce around with a bunch of different casts across the country and their production company. But we've been lucky enough to do a couple Barry shows. I've gotten to meet every living cast member of the movie with the exception of Richard O'Brien and Peter Henwood. They're all incredibly kind people. Meatloaf, bless his heart, was so gosh darn funny when we met. Tim Curry was just an absolute sweetheart, like a big teddy bear. They're all incredible people. The fact that they're still so dedicated to this one movie that they spent just a couple weeks on back in 1974 for the 1975 release, and that they're still like, gosh, we'll go out and party with the kids at midnight. We'll answer questions. We'll take photos. We'll do goofy stuff with them. I mean, they're incredible people. Absolutely incredible people.
I don't think people appreciate this enough. You talked about the price point of entertainment for, an emerging person in college, a young adult. And I think of the student loan expenses and everything. And like when I was in college, I remember I'd go to a St. Louis Blues game on college night for $4. And that seems unimaginable. The most expensive seat at Busch Stadium was $15. There was no party room. There was no all-inclusive. Yeah, you had the suites and such, but I wouldn't say the sky was the limit, but you could go to big things. And again, the music industry was about selling CDs and cassettes, etc., and albums, and concerts were to promote the actual sale of the recorded music. So you could do things without breaking the bank. And my word, you've grown up paying in Ticketmaster fees what I'd pay for a ticket, maybe more in those Ticketmaster fees. So I can imagine there's a lot of passion to bringing affordable entertainment to people that's larger than life.
Well, that's also that's a selling point of, consistent repeat audience members too. I mean, you can go see a movie anywhere for, I think the average price now is between $12 and $15. Even back when we started, it was roughly about that much to see an average movie. But when we played it at St. Andrews, I mean, it was $5, $5 at midnight. Bring your own stuff to throw, which kept it affordable. It made it a whole event. It made it something that people could, it was cheaper than a plate of food. If you just wanted to go hang out with your friends, go see a movie, get rowdy. And then, if you wanted to spend the extra money on food while you were there, perfect. Otherwise, you were into the crowd. You were into the show that night. Since St. Andrews, I mean, prices have gone up a little bit. I try to keep the price as low as possible. We don't set it. That's just dependent entirely on the theaters and what they typically charge. But that is something I'm always fighting for, is the cheaper the ticket, the better. We don't make any money off of it. The theaters do, of course, because that's their line of business. But just to have a good time and, give people a night they're going to remember for a very long time. That's our main goal. Keep the movie alive and thriving for the next generation.
Yeah, that is good stuff. The demand, obviously intense. And I know it's a weird time to promote yourself. There's a changing business model with media, but it seems like... sometimes social media I don't think is a good promotional tool for some. You don't really get to tell your story, but it just seems like you've got a great logo, you've got the QR codes, and it just seems like you've been able to market yourself without breaking the bank.
We've kind of figured out. I mean, we're always learning, we're always changing stuff, we're always doing that. The name, actually, it was so funny when we booked the show at St. Andrews initially. It was just me, myself, and a bunch of my high school theater friends. That was it. I think there was like 15 of us. We were trying to come up with a cast name, and I mean, there were some filthy ones thrown out there. I don't remember what they were now. But we threw out the joke name of Flustered Mustard, because there's the line in the movie, "Don't get hot and flustered, use a bit of mustard." And just the group consensus was just, "Are you joking? That's ridiculous. Of course we have to use that." And then our former cast director came up with the tagline of "My midnight snack is Flustered Mustard," which, of course, then tied it into the midnight show and the food aspect of Flustered Mustard. And then, I mean, the yellow complements the blood dripping red. I mean, it's just ketchup and mustard. It's a big hot dog joke. I mean, we just got lucky.
Oh, that's good stuff. I love it. It just cracked me up the first time I heard it. Well, we encourage folks to check it out coming up on Friday in Hillsboro, and might have some stragglers who listen to me from the St. Louis side of things. They want to catch that show in DeSoto. The Melba looks like a great venue. And,
beautiful place.
And then the Miners to close out the year. And I know you had a great show there last year. I drove by and saw the collection of people, and it's if you love people watching,
the Rocky Horror Picture Show is the place to people watch for sure.
Oh man, even if you're not going all in with fishnets and pumps or whatever, just watching it being like the fly on the wall is one of a kind.
It's absolutely true. It is. There's nothing else like it anywhere.
All right, where can folks find out more about Flustered Mustard?
If you want to find us on Facebook, our cast name is Flustered Mustard on Facebook. We've got a website. It's just strictly for ticket sales for all of the venues with all the show times. It's fmrhps.blogspot.com, which is a whole freaking mouthful. Just go to the Facebook page. We've got everything linked there. And then definitely come on out. If it's your first time or you're a Rocky Horror virgin, we'd be happy to have you. If it's your 100th time, happy to have you. Everyone's welcome.
Again, a great late start in Hillsboro, and that's another neat thing where you're having late starts to events in towns that just don't have late start anythings.
The parking is great for those.
No doubt about it. All right, well, Tristan Ratterman, I got it right, didn't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Woohoo! I'm going off memory, which, like I'm old and stuff, which really sucks, but, that's rare. I got it on the second try. That was good stuff. Hey, well, good talking to you, and look forward to the big show.
Absolutely. Hope to see everyone there.